Here we go.
Okay, so we have invited a variety of, we've reached out to a lot of organizations, and I can go through if people want to just go through that document of kind of which organizations we have reached out to and see if there's any missing. Um, have also been working on a map idea of way of presenting, doing a driving tour. And
Okay.
I think Greg Hall from Leica and Alan. Alan was going to take a couple of days off, so I wasn't expecting him to join, but I wasn't positive about Greg Hall. So I think we'll call this core group good. Yeah. Movers and shakers, men. Chris, we haven't heard from you in a long time. How are you doing? What's going on with you?
I'm exhausted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, thank you for joining us anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm trying. I just couldn't work anymore today, so I said, you know what? I got to make the meeting because I can just sit here and not have to do anything other than listen and talk a little. So that's easy.
Yeah, people shouldn't feel bad about turning off their video. I too am eating, so that's why my video is off. I try to remember to mute before I chew into the microphone.
So I got a question for you guys.
You bet.
In regards to the Parks Department using the Grange Hall. Terry, I guess this is for you. Remind me of who was arranging that with the Grange Hall, the dates and all that kind of stuff, contract and all that.
Wendell and I started talking with Judy Thomas about 2 months ago, and she gave us the contract. And then, and the date is August 18th, and the contract has the time frame from 4 till 9. Our meetings start at 6, excuse me, but there seemed to have been a miscommunication someplace, and I'm not quite sure where, but I needed to wait to find out the proper procedure because the county should pay for the rental. But, and we're fine paying, writing a check, but I think there's a proper process to it. And I mentioned that to Judy and she was fine. But a couple of days ago, I got an email from Leslie Dempsey, who's the president, and she wanted me to include Beverly in the conversation because she's the treasurer. And Judy, I guess, forgot to put the commissioners meeting on the Grange calendar. So, but nobody else asked for it. So I talked with Leslie and Beverly, and so we're set unless something's changed again, but we're set for August 18th from, like I said, we have it from 4 to 9, not sure what all we're going to do with it. And I have the price, the contract and everything, like I said, but when it's a government commission, there's a proper protocol on how you handle the finances of it. And the Parks and Rec Commission, or the Parks and Rec Department, is going through a lot of transitions right now. New executive director who may come to our meeting in August to observe, and then he starts officially, I think it's September 3rd. And he's from, I've heard 2 things. One is somebody thought he was from Alabama, another one thought he was from Kentucky. But so he's from one of those states. And he has tremendous credentials. Anyway, so, and then with the concept we had, which is more, it's interesting, is what we're trying to do is more open to the commission than most of the commission. All commission meetings are open. But it seems to me what I'm experiencing, and this is my personal assessment, is Lummi Island is this community that's not a city. So it doesn't have the infrastructure, so we're creating that. And we're inviting them over, pardon me? We're inviting them over and we're opening it up to the whole community, which they all are. And they may bring some guests who want to be on the agenda to address something. But we have in October a meeting up at Birch Bay, and the same thing is happening. They're not a city either. So the community is building, so they seem like they're gonna have a bigger attendance. But it's a bigger deal for them to see all the commissioners. So that's a little more than you asked for, but does that clarify the date and everything?
Yes, thank you. Somebody asked me about it and I wanted to make sure everything was good, and it sounds like it is. So wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My phone may die, just so you all know. If I disappear, that's why, because my phone's dying. It's plugged in, but not working right.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And I'll just remind myself to follow up. Would you be able to speak with Tammy for us, or see if whom she needs to speak, to see if we can get representatives from the Beach Elementary School for the, okay, great. I'll send the blurb I've been sending to everybody. And if you forward that to, well, I mean, you can probably just show it to her. You probably don't have to forward it to her, but that would be great. And then for the Lummi Island, the Foundation for Education, the LIFE folks, I have to look up who that contact. I talked to Tom at the market last week, but I didn't get his last name.
I think it's
He was
Phillips.
interested- he had
Probably Tom
interesting-
Phillips.
Phillips, yeah.
Tom, oh, Phillips. Okay, great. Because he brought up he was interested in talking to Parks and Recreation about what he said has been a long-time interest of his own, which was also, elementary school related, which was to have some end-to-end trail going across Lummi Island, piecing together a lot of sections that we have, but are not either clearly marked or might require some easements to agree to let people cross private land.
Interesting.
That's what I took him to, but I hate to speak for him, but because that was so interesting, I said, oh, well, that would be great if you could come, as a member of the community and representing whomever else you wish. So.
That's a great question. If he comes to the commission, that's a great question, because other communities are doing that.
Yeah, and so I think this is why, we got a lot of interest from people who said, because, we sent the mission statement or published the mission statement, and they said, senior services, what? And I was like, this is exactly why we need to be having this meeting, because, Terry has told us and told me about a lot of the senior services, but apparently there's a lot of people on the island who just are not familiar with that at all. And of course, we have a lot going on here for senior services.
Right. I think, again, it's about infrastructure. Like Ferndale City has a senior center. Blaine has a senior center. Lummi Island does not, and Birch Bay does not. And Point Roberts does. So they have that infrastructure built in, where the communities like here on the island, it's Congregational Church and the elderberries and activities like that.
So I think it's us helping the county understand what has been put in place here, and then how we might leverage the relationship with the county as well as possible, in addition to the county helping to showcase wherever they can. Because I think the theme I've been hearing from people is also, people on the island are not just sitting here waiting for the county to come bail us out or something, right? There's a lot going on this island. But I think people kind of take for granted in some respect and don't take as much credit for a lot of the effort that goes on out here. And I personally hope this is the kind of showcase we can do that begins to help really illustrate the value.
I think it's a great opportunity. All the committees I'm on in the county, there's several government committees. Everybody has a rather vague impression of Lummi Island. And then when our ferry becomes a topic, and the taxes and all of the ferry docks and all that stuff becomes a topic, then they get cranky, because they feel like we're sucking. One phrase was, you're sucking the life out of the county. Our ferry is. And so that's when I went, and I got it when I was working with the Ferndale School Bond too. So I went to the tax assessor's office and said, how much do we pay? in taxes. So I have something to talk about in return to these conversations. And I think it's our job, this committee, which is an interesting committee because I like what you're doing. It's a broader base. It doesn't have a specific, it had a specific start.
Our mission, our kickoff mission, was
Yeah.
reasonably narrow, but I think we've realized that we've raised such related issues, and I don't see how we can disconnect them. I think we need to keep them as a more cohesive mission going forward.
I think so too. And I like what's happening. And it's my impression that a lot of this is coming under the LICA umbrella, correct?
Yeah, yeah, that because I think is a sort of unifying organization that represents. It's an organization of organizations. To me, in some levels, it's like our council of government here.
Yes.
So that there are many organizations that either, again, like members are members of, or like a board are members of, so that you have an opportunity to show, again, hopefully more coordinated action than just a lot of little pockets. And I think there's, again, a lot more coordination that has been done and could be done so that we have the message is a bit more cohesive. Yeah.
Well, it's like a microcosm government. I'm not saying I'm not sure if I'm saying that quite right. But the county has big county topics, big county mission statements, and every county council member is on several committees.
Yeah,
I see them on other committees that I'm on. So they bring some knowledge with them, and that I think is what we're doing in a smaller version.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one aspect that we want to kind of try to figure out how we keep pulling the pieces together. Chris, I had a great discussion at the farmers market with Dave Parker, and his particular area of interest, he said, the committee has broached it a couple of times, but you haven't kind of gone full force yet with this notion of how is it that you organize the boats in order to respond to a need, whether it's an outage or an event. And he called it, he said he envisions Chris at the head of this tree, and he called it the Dunkirk model. And I love that because part of the whole point was talk about a grassroots, right? We have to get this thing, and it is Chris in a nutshell, get her done. We have to get this thing done. And we can't sit around and wait for something to happen and somebody else to do it and this or that. We need to get it done. So he was very enthusiastic about that. And I talked to him about doing, again, a small group where that's the one topic. So we started to tackle these things and put together a group of people who have a passion for it, who have experience, who have the pieces of the puzzle. Chris, he talked about something we may have mentioned, and maybe it never really struck me how it fit into the puzzle, but he was talking about the where a boat could land, and he lives, what's the name of the cove at the end of Sunrise? That is Sunrise Cove.
Right.
Okay. And he was saying, hey, it would be fine with me as an owner if there's a big need that people could come very close to here. And yes, it's private land, but he said, I'd be willing to go to the neighbors and say, listen, could we agree that during a time of this either emergency or urgent need, that we say it's okay to come use this. It's protected. It's not that far. It's close to Bellingham. It's not that far from Gooseberry. And I love that because I do think that all of those pockets, you have to have somebody who's either a member of the pocket or knows other people who are all going to get together and say, yeah, let's have an explicit agreement.
Was this Dave Parker, Lane?
Yes.
My battery went down, and so
Oh,
I
I
had to
wondered.
plug
I
in.
thought, yes. So Dave Parker.
Okay.
Yeah, so it gives us, I think that, again, it can be a huge project for us. And by breaking it down and saying, okay, here's a member of the community who's very interested in this particular aspect. Let's form a group. Let's work toward that. And then that's one piece of the puzzle, which is we need to address, okay, if we don't have a dock, how do we respond? If we do have a dock later down the road, we can adjust the plan. But just the notion of when things happen, there's an electric outage. I mean, there are other things that happen on the island where, yeah, it'd be great to deploy those people who had signed up a while ago and said, you know, I have this thing. I have a room people can sleep in. I have a generator.
Yes.
I have a boat. I have a something. And that's where, on some level, I think there's some projects that you can encourage and nurse, but until someone else gets the bug and wants to, like Chris is like all over, hey, this just got to happen, then 10 years from now, we still don't have a dock. We still don't have, you know, so I think there's how you find the interest and go ahead and kind of nurture that along. So, and I'd also talked to Olivia Marshall from Full Bloom Farm. And she said, yeah, she could help host a discussion among the farmers on the island to have, again, a group of people who would have at least, you know, things in common, who would be able to chat with each other, share their ideas, and have, you know, their viewpoint represented accurately. And then, you know, that way we start getting that business input that we've talked about, but struggled with how do we do that. So I think you have to find a person who says, well, I'm interested.
Yeah. Has anyone like, have you, Lane or Alan, while in my goneness, reached out to Heritage Trust, and are they on board with something for
Yeah,
the
so
18th?
I had reached out, and then I talked to Susan at the market on Saturday, and I sent her the email with what I'm doing is just kind of a sort of canned message of, this is what's happening. This is why your organization would seem a good fit. Here's some of the things you could do. And so she was passing that on. The current outreach person is changing roles, or is it a gap? Do they not have a?
They have a gap right now. Their community outreach, their professional community outreach person had to move off the island because her husband moved off the island, and so their whole family moved off.
Got it.
And they haven't, because Susan has just transitioned in as executive director. She started in May. She's still getting her feet on the ground. So I am on their board, and we had a board meeting last night, and there wasn't a whole lot of talk about that, but we had a very, very, very full agenda. So I will make a commitment to talk to Susan in the next day or two. And
she did, yeah. Judy
Bush.
Judy
Bush.
Okay, because you know it's so funny. People just introduce themselves to me by their first name, and I walk away going, "Well, I'll figure out who that is," and I wonder why I'm going. Was that Judy Olson? Was that Judy Thomas? Was that?
Yeah.
It's with Lane. Lane is just Lane, and Terry is Terry.
Yeah.
But Mary, there's some people I have been in full-on discussions with, so convinced they were talking about you, Mary, only to find out that shockingly, other people can be named Mary. And live
Oh
on
yes, there's a lot of Marys on the island.
And I don't know, I was just all like, oh, Mary does that too. And finally someone mentioned a last name, and I said, oh, that's actually not Mary Ross, is it? So y'all
Mhm.
have it's all very well and good to say, oh, Lane, why don't you contact these people? But you realize I'm going to be some pretty wild guesses as to who some
Yeah,
people are.
yeah. No, I'll follow up with Susan. There's some real big stuff going on this week, but that should be concluded by Friday. And so I'll follow up with her probably early next week and make sure that we get somebody like Elizabeth or Scott or somebody from the board that
Yeah.
can be part of it. So
Yeah. And she was very pleased with the whole concept, thought it was a great idea, really understood, how important it was. And also, why you always read the tome, was such an interesting, this whole water challenge
mhm.
in conjunction with. So I actually added them to the organization list because I'm sorry, but what would be more important than water? Discussion on the island. So I thought that would be, a good corollary to point out for Parks and Rec that we're trying to get more citizen commitment to really understanding our water and
Mhm.
building a.
The sense I'm getting from what you've been saying, from what I'm hearing, and I'm not that involved in the island activities, haven't been for a few years because I'm so off island, but sitting in the ferry line for a while because of all the cement trucks and the building,
Mhm.
so people have been coming by and chatting. And it's so nice because it's like a little bit of a family reunion, and I haven't had a conversation with them forever. So that's a positive thing to the cement trucks, right? All construction, more conversations.
There have been a lot of them. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Not when the cement trucks are coming to your house next door at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, is it you? Is your neighbor area that's getting some of this?
Oh yeah, yeah. My neighbor had several trucks coming in. Yeah,
Isn't
she's
it?
rebuilding, but yeah, it's
Oh my
no,
God.
it's really good. And I love my neighbor, so I'm glad she's going to improve her cabin.
It's pretty amazing, but what I'm getting a sense of is people are chatting. I'm
Mhm.
getting updated by the community members,
Mhm.
and they're chatting, and I'm hearing things kind of like what you've been saying, Lane, is that here's my favorite word in marketing and public relations, and it's been my word for 30 years, and I'm still using it. I just don't use it as often, but there's a fresh approach. There's a fresh energy, and there's a feeling that comes with fresh. So the community members are feeling there's like a volunteer fatigue, and the way you're developing this networking, this web of support, is providing fresh energy to the island, and we're bringing you, from what I'm hearing, new people to that are on the island are finding a place to participate.
Well, you raise such a good point, and I think it's one reason. If you tell people we're 100% about building a dock, we are talking about years and years, right? We talk about fatigue, but if we can say that we're really about helping to look at what happens when events occur, whether they're literally a disaster or they're a ferry outage, and how it is as a group, we can put, again, pieces of the puzzle together. And then if other committees are really, quote, I don't know, the owners of that, like maybe the evacuation, the disaster preparedness team is really the owner of that. Wonderful. Then we work with them. So we hope to be a branch of disaster preparedness. And maybe it's a, recreation aspect. Yes, when the dock comes, we would have more recreation, but in the meantime, we can be a conduit for recreation discussions in in the interim, oh, that's great, right? So, and especially, I do think that apparently there's someone on the island recently who has expressed interest in actually formalizing a welcome wagon. And as members of the dock committee, we should be jumping all over that, because every single person who moves onto this island had better be a major proponent with getting a dock, right? Because I hate to tell you this, but I'm betting a lot of them moved here assuming there was a dock.
I think there, at least yes. Yes, I think a lot of people just assumed there'd be a public dock.
Yeah. And then when they say, oh, there's no dock, but that's okay because there's a this or there's that and the other. And then you're like, well, not so much. So I think that if we keep looking for these opportunities, it helps keep us fresh. Because I mean, I honestly, if you just said to me, so Lane, you guys are going to go off and find $10 million in 10 years and build a dock, I'm like, oh, I'm burned out already. But if you say, listen, you're going to, help inspire people to get together and talk to each other and come up with maybe someone else is going to come up with an interim solution. If we get some small groups together. But otherwise, yeah, I think we'll just peter out, because if you're not doing something that you feel has a shorter term progress,
Right.
I think it's going to be just too tiring.
Well, and I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what I think a lot of people assume is going to happen to the public dock committee. Some people have just said that very explicitly, like, well, you'll run up against all these barriers that you haven't even considered. And even if you say that you've considered them, it'll just be like all these other newcomer ideas that or
Gary and Chris just moved on to the island last week, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I haven't been here 20 years yet. So, and even if you're here 20 years, it doesn't make any difference.
20 years and it doesn't make any difference.
That's right. It doesn't.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, so that's sort of where I feel like we want to, again, watch for people's, passions. And even if it's, I used to, some of the projects I've worked on in the past, I've felt as if one problem with the volunteer management aspect, if you will, is that they just, once you signed on, they thought you would be there for the rest of your lives. And yes. I really prefer to see a 1 year or a 2 year commitment and then let you go. And maybe if it's some subcommittee you loved and you want to, spin that off or just take time off. But I do think in order to stay fresh,
you need to do that.
Have some success too,
Here's I think I gave you an example at the first meeting I attended when I talked about how it was a ferry advisory committee under LICA. It wasn't a ferry advisory committee set up by the county council. This was under LICA, and I was on it, and it was, gosh, we had just moved on I had just moved on the island full time. So 2003 maybe. And I was interviewed. Bill Lee was the chair.
That's why I was wondering if that was the committee that Bill was on. Yeah.
And he's just so good at whatever he does. And he wanted to know my background. And there was tension, which I had a sense of, but I didn't know the history. So I have found for me, it's best for me just to have a sense, but not know, because then I don't blunder into preconceived notions. Because within a very short period of time, I was told who to like and who not to like. And then I was like, I'm a big girl. I can make my own decisions, and I'm making my history now. I don't want to live your history with these individuals. So when Bill interviewed me, that was part of our conversation, because it turns out that my husband and I were friends with some people who had been attacking, like, it's that stuff. It's all that stuff. So anyway, and I think I was telling you, I'm pretty sure I told this committee, is that we spent 2 years, third Monday of every month up at the fire hall, trying to figure out our recommendations. We met with county directors, we did all the stuff, and then we made a presentation. But we all agreed to go with majority, and I'm sure I told you guys the story. So our chairs were down at the county council at the podium, and they made our presentation. We were all there, and then one of our committee went to the other podium and said he totally disagreed. And we were sent to a room without dinner. He essentially said, go home and figure this out. And then that night, as we were all staying out in the lobby trying to figure out what the heck just happened, we decided we just had wasted 2 years, to the third Monday of 2 years, and we all quit.
So demoralizing, no question. Yeah.
It is. And so there's been sort of a history of that kind of thing. Big fish, little pond, maybe some of that kind of stuff. But what I'm hearing from you, Lane, and Mary's probably experienced with some of the stuff too that I'm talking about, but what I'm hearing is it's a fresh approach reaching out. It's not clicks. It's not, it isn't about a domain. It isn't about a kingdom or a fiefdom. It's about, there's a concept we have, and it's under the umbrella of LICA, which is already established and highly respected in the county. And LICA is doing more than it's ever done with the website and then subcommittees and that's what, like, again, back to the Parks and Rec, we just established Thursday night another subcommittee. We have a subcommittee that's going to search for the potential revenue streams that we can acquire beyond what we already have, so that we can provide these services to the communities. And we have highly skilled people that brought it up. So within a nanosecond, those two others were on that committee. And then when the public health asked for a representative from our Parks and Rec to be on their board, everybody's. And I think the pandemic created we need to reach out and help rather than beat each other up. I think this is an opportunity. The way you're describing this, it's an opportunity for us.
Terry
Okay,
just.
Terry's frozen. Okay, there she comes. Hey,
Okay.
Terry, you froze up there. You
Oh,
said
did
it's an opportunity for us, and then we lost you.
Oh,
But now you're
okay.
back. I can
So
hear.
I'm gonna start knocking on your doors. I'm walking. No, I'm gonna stay right here. So you lost me on,
It's an opportunity for us.
and then I froze. Gosh,
Uh-huh.
that's kind of a coincidence, isn't it? It's a, that was
One of
weird.
those cliffhangers.
Yeah, it is an opportunity for us to provide a fresh opportunity, because there are people who now are being inspired. You're encouraging people to get involved in a different way. And some people, they, like in the fairy line, they brought up the dock. They said, well, what do you think of the dock? And I said, I think the dock is a great idea. And I think the committee is working in a good way to get it as part of a topic, but it's not the only topic on the island. And so they wanted to hear more. And I can only talk about the ones I participate in. And I just use that word. There's fresh energy, there's fresh talent and experience, and dang, Lane, the things you know how to do. And then other people, like Dave Perry in the searching of that gas tax.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, we've been sitting here on this chunk of dirt for a lot of years and nobody had ever heard of that before. And then Alan Crum, with us, it's time. And the pandemic set us up to we couldn't go anywhere. We had to learn about Zoom. Did anybody know about Zoom before the pandemic? No. And then here's another example. I'll do this really quick. I'm on another committee. It's called, maybe I told you about North Sound Transportation Alliance. And it's Whatcom, Skagit, Snohomish County, Island County, and King County. And it's about transportation and addressing the needs. Transportation addresses needs. Sometimes people don't connect that. Transportation provides community for some people.
Mhm.
And I started riding the bus, but it doesn't work for me on a regular basis. But I took the bus ride with somebody in one of our committees. But back, and I think I was explaining pre-pandemic, everybody that had a passion about something would come to these meetings, and then we prioritize, and then we lobby, and we get money, and we try to address. And we just got $1 billion, billion with the B, dollars each year for the next 5 years for transportation concerns, and it's part of the COVID. It's a lot of it's an opportunity for a lot of service.
Is that the Move Washington?
Yes, it's part of that.
Okay.
And so the things pre-pandemic is hydrogen trains, high-speed rail from Portland to Vancouver, BC. All the ferries need to become hybrid or electrification. And at the time, it was going to be $14 billion for 18 ferries. Now the whole ferry thing is off balance, short staff. Trips are being canceled. Schedules are happening as challenging as airlines. So anyway, 3 topics were critical: telemedicine, universal broadband, and services for veterans. And it was always a topic, but it didn't stay at the top of the list when we did the voting before the pandemic. Get into the those 3 things went straight to the top, and we got money. And now we have those services. We're not going to give those up. We're going to always have telemedicine. We are getting more universal broadband, and the veterans are getting more attention. But it takes something like a pandemic. So if it does that in that kind of a big way, what you're providing it's a whole fresh approach. It isn't just a civic club. It isn't just the Heritage Trust. It isn't just the Grange. It isn't just anything.
It's community.
Yes, and I'm loving that word. Community resiliency is community sustainability. These are key words right now. Community benefit. That's what needs to be used a lot. We're getting grants like crazy. We just got another 1.2, I might have mentioned this, 1.25 million to continue the berm trail in Birch Bay down to Cottonwood. It provided community, public health, public safety, and it's already proven itself.
Yeah, well, why don't we, there were 2 things. One is I just wanted to share the organization, I don't know, like little spreadsheet I've been doing for which organizations we've talked to. And if people can help me just fill in any gaps or let me know if there's any other organizations you think of now. And I guess we have to figure out how the 2 meld together. But right now, frankly, I'm treating this as almost 2 different tasks. One is to organize a driving tour, and the other is to organize the organizations. Because I don't think in the driving tour, in terms of stopping anywhere, I'm guessing that it will just be Easton that would actually stop. That the others are all going to be, point and just grab as we drive by.
Well, and I brought this up at the meeting.
Yeah.
Thursday night about your ideas, and I just made it open. I didn't define the ideas. I just said, here's what the community, first of all, I said, everybody on the island is excited about the fact the commission's coming. And I said, so here's some ideas that we have: a tour of the points of interest on the island, and especially the ones that Parks and Rec owns, gave money to for development, all of that. Plus there's some other things that the commissioners probably don't know about. And I mentioned a couple of things and they didn't. one commissioner's never been on the island. And then I talked about the meal. I talked about that mini trade show idea that you had like a Saturday market. I talked about all those things, and they're trying to figure it out. The amount of time. Several of them are thinking about just parking the cars at Gooseberry and then walking on and walking to the Grange. So that means they wouldn't have their vehicles, but we may have a county vehicle. So they're figuring these things out. So they thought that they could put you on the agenda. There's public comment time. And it's usually about 20 minutes and each person gets 2 minutes or so. But then we could also, one idea was to put you on the agenda, but as a full topic, not just the dock, but as a full topic of the island organizations. You know, so then you could have people speak, you know, with, like I said, this is in pre-production. But, and then I said about food, a meal, provide a meal for you, and nobody's ever done that. And I said, well, we're famous for our potlucks, you know, so I tried to make it really welcoming, and it clearly is that. But they haven't given me an idea of what all we can do. But what I think you are doing is creating this networking, this what you call web, that's bigger than I think almost anything I've ever seen here. I don't know, Mary's been here. How long have you been here, Mary?
19 and a half years. Not very.
Have you seen a networking like what you are all talking about?
No. When I was president of LICA, I was trying to put something like that together, like when we were faced with the fire marshal closing down the Grange as a meeting facility and the church as a meeting place. And I tried, and I think I succeeded in getting the conversation started with the school, and to try to reduce the cost for organizations to use that as an interim meeting place. And so in a lot of the organizations, like we had like Heritage Trust there because they used the Grange for their annual meeting, and they used the Grange for their fundraising dinners. You know, the church, the library, all of the organizations on the island did come together, and we talked about our needs, and we talked about like how we can how we can try to deal with the sudden cutoff. It was like having all of the organization's feet cut out from underneath them. You know, nowhere to meet. And so that, you know, that was a little crisis thing. And that happened to happen when I was president of LICA. And I think we did, you know, negotiate that, and we were able to get like an agreement with the school district to allow us to have reduced rates for school use for community events, because that was also the time that they were having a lot of the LIFAC needed to do presentations on the scoping for the new ferry. And so there was just a lot of stuff going on then. So, and LICA was able to use its insurance because a lot of the organizations, the Grange required, and the school required proof of insurance for liability insurance for an organization. So, and LICA being a 501c3, and the fact that we had actually started purchasing liability insurance and, you know, board insurance and stuff like that. So it was, LICA was able to kind of help put those things together and make events still be able to happen. So that's about the closest I can think of that I've personally really been intimately involved with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's, like I say, I think we'll, at this point, we'll just assume we can arrange a driving tour. And why not? And until we hear otherwise. And, but let's go back and look at the organizations first, because it seems like if we have an opportunity to be on an agenda, maybe we could have different organizations there and speak to it, and maybe some people would stand up and say, okay, I represent, you know, it's not a formal organization. Like I didn't realize the farmers market isn't exactly a formal organization, but it's certainly an important part of our community life. Share, you know, they just get together, they've made it work, right? But if we had someone who said, well, you know, I'm a restaurant owner, one or two, or I'm a retailer, I'm a farmer, that we could, you know, maybe do it that way. So, but let's assume that if you were doing that, it's still like a Saturday market in the sense of you're just going to stand there and be your booth. and I still would like probably for everyone to have some kind of at least a one-page handout for the commissioners to get an idea of what that organization does and, you know, members, something about how they fit into island life. That makes sense?
Yes. Yeah, one page. Keep it simple.
Yeah, so let me share and I'll just bring up this planning document and we can throw out some ideas. Let's see, that's our notes from tonight. Let me bring our other window up here. So here is our organization list and plan. So, and I put these in alphabetical order just because then I could you know, track them. Having the homeowner association, or at least the resident community association, if there is one officially, or at least represent, again, maybe it's just on the map or handout, how many kind of neighborhood communities we have. So, and I put the ones in yellow and bold are also with the assumption that we were able to do a driving tour. These would be ones we would point to. So here's this community. Beach Elementary School. And I put the notes the other night from Terry's input about how important it would be for us to help the commission really understand what the school is about. And then so there's a PTO, but in addition to that, the Foundation for Education. Retail, you know what, I might come back. I'll add another column and maybe we can put a designation here as to what kind of organization, because this is just a mix of everything, just alphabetical order. I was going to reach out to Dave, Beach Store Cafe, and just ask him about, you know, coming to the meeting. Another homeowner association or neighborhood. I don't know anyone over at Cedrus. Do you guys know anyone at Cedrus?
I think
Debbie Roth.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And her daughter lives there too, doesn't she, Vanessa?
Vanessa, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
What's the last name?
Roth.
R-O-T-H.
R-O-T-H, yeah.
Okay.
No, Debbie is the mom.
Okay.
I.E., I think, or Deb Roth.
Then
you know what?
What's that?
There's a deaf community.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Debbie's also part of that because she's a interpreter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'll say community of hearing impaired. Okay.
And I don't remember, you know, it was a community, a pretty sizable community.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? She said it was Debbie who was interpreter.
Yeah, Debbie Roth is the interpreter.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and look at, as soon as I said that, our reaction, you know, our sense of, see what it does? It was compelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's a layer over a layer.
And see, that's what the county doesn't know about us. They don't know if we're compelling or just ornery.
Yeah. I guess we could do both. Let's see. I've talked with Rama, and she's a running point for me with the other people who would represent the different services and outreach. In addition to, I was going to put here, public beach, which is a pretty important public access to the beach. I consider that to be a pretty important community service.
Very.
And on blood bank, right now,
Yes.
we're on hold on that. Because it's Bloodworks Northwest is the main organization that does the blood drives here on the island.
Oh,
I have been coordinating them along
Oh,
with
okay.
MJ Van Housen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
That was
they're on hold right now.
That was a wonderful connection, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
It was really
Yeah.
wonderful what you did.
Yeah, and so that's something that it's one of LICA's committees that's a standing. It's not a standing committee, but it's part of LICA's outreach. Has
Got it.
been that for several years now.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay.
So it's not through public health.
No, I would say I was looking at its category. It's where it fits. I say community service.
Yeah.
Public health
Mhm.
is where it fits into the big picture.
Mhm. And right now, MJ hasn't been real active with it, so
Okay.
I'm kind of running point right now on that still with Bloodworks, trying to discontinuing to say that we are interested in hosting and getting back into hosting 2
Got
blood
it.
drives a year.
Got it. By the way, I would also consider if the organizations are okay with it, is providing this as a handout to the commission with just the organization notes and their website. Something like that. Just give them in one place a list. And that's why I was thinking I might want to have a one column that just says type of organization, maybe on a very high level. Let's see, Full Bloom Farm, and of course she also has. They also have a B&B. I need to send her a follow-up email.
Is it
I'm
Liz?
sorry, I skipped over Parish Health, but Parish Health Ministry team. But Rama will
And
talk to them about it.
actually, Meals on Wheels is one of LICA's projects.
Oh, you know what? I had it. I realized later. I talked to Connie Berry,
Mhm.
and that's actually a LICA. Oh, I did not realize. So LICA has projects in addition to sort of subcommittees.
Mhm.
Okay, let me put here LICA projects or something along those lines.
Yeah, so the projects are blood drive, community cleanup,
Oh yeah.
and Meals on Wheels. Yeah, those are all projects that LICA has spearheaded and kind of sponsors, provides coordination and communication with the community. I think those are and then now there's the advisory committees, and it's airlines, traffic calming. Yeah.
Ongoing. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. And this is now a little bit out of alphabetical order, but you get my drift. So we'll have a breakout, because I do think, again, for announcing the size, well, as Paul Davis mentioned, this edition of the tome, the calendar, could it have gotten? You couldn't have squished anything else onto that calendar, and still fit it on an 8x14 piece of paper. So very impressive. Let's see, Lummi Island artists. Now, I did not. I got this from the website. I don't know these people myself, but I will send them the email tomorrow, and hoping again we get a display map and the artist stop at least. But
Mhm.
whether they could sort of represent artists, vendors, artisans, whatever else people will identify themselves as in this group. I don't know if it's an actual association per se, but I'll call it that. Let's see, I've been talking with Carol McKinney about the Lummi Island Civic Club. Leica, of course, I hope we're well covered on Leica.
You know, a real quick comment about
Yeah.
the artists.
Yeah.
At one point, and I don't know if it's happened, but at one point, when I was on Leica board, I was teaching at Bellingham Technical College. I was teaching the EMT courses there, and I think it was Meredith. I think it was Meredith Mensch, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it was recommended that the Lummi Island artists form a Lummi Island Arts Council.
Okay.
And if they did, then they would have grants. They could acquire grants, and they could get grants from this Washington State Arts Council for like public display pieces of art. We just got $90,000 from Washington State Public Display Arts Council for public display of art. It's a new committee I'm on, and it's for the high school, the new high school. We toured about 3 weeks ago, and I remember, as I was seeing the names and listening to you chat about this, I don't know if they did that, but it was a really good opportunity. It just takes people who want to organize it. But it was going to be the Lummi Artist Art Council. That's something the island is known for, is art.
Oh, exactly. The woman who does pottery, and I see her name in the tome, and I've met her myself and meant to add her to this list. It sounded at least 3 people were the ones that.
Lindy.
D, not
Yes.
D.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's her name?
LYNNDEE.
Got it. Okay, so I'll look
D's
at
her
that.
last
Is in
name,
the
yeah.
tome.
There was
So-
actually a class at Bellingham Technical to teach that, to teach how to set one up. And it might have been Lindy that took it, or Rhea Harrow.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was a class to learn how to set up an arts council.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, that's an interesting point, yeah. Yeah, I can't tell from this, but that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not been done, I think it would be a great thing to do.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have a chance to chat with you about that. Well, let's see. LifeVac, obviously. Now, I put them as not related, but community advisory committee. County / community.
It's a county advisory committee.
Yes, but I mean, the county, we would hopefully be a community within the county. Alan was going to talk to Bill Seeger. Is that his name?
Sager.
Sager. He's on the committee.
Alan, I don't believe Alan is a part of LifeVac. I mean, that Bill Sager is a member of LifeVac.
Oh.
The current chairperson of LifeVac is a man who lives off island named Chris Colburn.
Oh, he does live off island. I mean, because I thought I would be able. I thought there used to be a link that would send email to all the LifeVac members, but in fact, I ended up with only the email that I could send to the administrator to forward. And I don't know if she was going to forward it to him or wait and put it in the minutes.
They're in the process. The county is in the process of setting up some supports for the county committees that are the committees that serve the county count at the at the whims of the county council. And
Um,
Chris announced that at the last Life Act meeting, that instead of having to go with the Google Docs, there's going to actually be a better way of contacting
I get it. I'd
the
actually
Life Act
heard.
board by going through the county. But the county is still in the process of doing that. So,
Okay, so
and it's
I don't know how to.
I think Chris is COLBURN Colburn.
Okay. Because I was actually trying to replay part of, because I was at the meeting on Zoom, but I didn't think to write everything down, and then I was replaying the video because there was a new member.
Yeah, and
large
yeah,
county member, and she offered to be, what is she? I think the secretary. But then I realized I didn't have emails for anybody, and I wasn't quite sure what's the best way to
contact. Yeah,
yeah.
Rama could be a good person just to talk to.
Yeah.
I do have Chris's email. I can send it to you.
Well, if you don't mind doing that, because it is Rama who suggested I send it to Chris, but I guess she didn't realize I didn't have any way of reaching it.
Yeah.
That's okay. If that's okay with you, if you could forward that to me, then I can say this is a follow up to the statement I made at the meeting. I wasn't there in person, I was on Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great, Mary.
Yeah, but Bill Sager is not a member of Life Act. He's just doing the Zoom stuff for them.
Well, maybe Alan just was thinking he could tell me who. Okay, cool. Well, then that will so then the Lummi Island Fire Department, of course, and disaster prep, and as an almost member of the team, Terry, I told you about the little bit of a slowdown with getting the background checks done, but we've just gotten that paperwork resubmitted to a new group who is taking care of that. So we've been meeting with Mike and John, and we should be official pretty soon.
Excellent.
Yeah. And the other part of that was just making sure, because I did talk to Rama, making sure we also designate which of these facilities we're talking about are official shelters, emergency shelters. And of course that, which ones are also like Aston are landing zones and emergency landing craft.
I'm going to interrupt you if you don't mind. A big piece, an important piece about the Heritage Trust and Aston Preserve was the plan for the landing zone. That was really, I went on the tour, and Elizabeth Krilinowski is wonderful.
Yeah.
But I watched people's reactions. There's just certain things that, it's like when I said the deaf community had reactions. With the landing zone, the Heritage Trust has built, there's at least one that I'm aware of, landing zone being built in the process. And that's a community benefit.
Yeah.
Public health, safety.
Sure.
It's all of that.
Ticks a lot of boxes. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people have that the Lummi Island Heritage Trust is just about land.
You bet.
And it needs, I think people need to see that it's about community more than just land acquisition.
Yes.
It's about, and they're providing the land for the community to access it, but they're building a landing zone, and they're building an area where people can kayak or canoe and onto a beach.
Yeah.
There are going to be buoys out there.
Yep. Mooring buoys. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something important to say, because sometimes the Heritage Trust, there's a sense of it's separate.
Well, I have to say, I suspect that if people are not paying a lot of attention or really reading all of the print all the way to the bottom of the page, when they look sometimes at projects like that, they simply say, I have a feeling there's just an element of people who will say that's rich people paying to, preserve land and not appreciating the wide what that does for the community. That's not just taking land out of sales, you know, there's a lot
Yeah,
more.
community benefit.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Well,
needs
that's
to be stated. Anyway,
yeah. And then I added the water safe. I don't know anything. We mentioned last week that there is a Lummi Island Historical Society, and I have to admit I don't know anything about it, so that's a big blank for me.
what I heard was Joan Kuiper and Bobby
Bobby
Hutchins.
Hutchins, yeah, and also Mark Schintafler was involved in that.
Because at the museum,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a museum tour down at Village Point.
Yeah, and I think also, I think there's some of the ReefNet people. Bud, is it Granger? I think that, yeah, they were kind of in that too. But Joan Kuiper, it's Kieper.
Kaiper. Okay.
No, it's I before E. Yeah.
That.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And it's
BOBBIE. I think BOBIE. I think
Was
is
she?
Yeah.
She had okay. So I'll see if I can track that down. I'm sort of. I have to admit I'm reaching sort of probably the end of my capacity for reaching out. So if I don't know the people at all, I'm leaving it to left.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important. The Historical Society.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the tome that
Mm-hmm.
Labor Day weekend.
It's for what weekend?
Labor Day weekend. There's a tour of the new museum at Village Point.
Oh, okay. Well then I'll look, Lane. Look on at tome. I thought I'd read through the whole tome, and apparently I have. See, I usually leave it open so that I can go search for stuff. So I'd say museum.
It was on the cover, the calendar.
Oh, okay.
The calendar.
Oh, okay. Here it is. Joan Kuiper. Well, then there we go. Da 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 da. That's what I needed. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now that I know that, I will add it to the list. That makes my life much easier. Thank you. I had no idea. Okay, let's see. Saturday market, again, that's sort of informal, but I'm hoping we would at least have pictures from Alan. The community, the Scenic Estates Community Association, talked to Carol about that, especially because, they do have the docks and seasonal support for emergency access. So she was going to talk to the board. Isle Air, did I skip over? Does Isle Air have an HOA, or how does that work, Mary?
We have a water association, and we'll have our annual meeting this Saturday.
Do you want to ask if someone would like to attend or have a little handout or something? I don't know, why would I spell Isle with an A in it? You ask yourself. No wonder.
Yeah, IS. Oh, yeah. And it's AIRE. Airy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and good person would be Dave Perry. He is currently vice president, and I think he is going to end up being president of the association.
Okay, so I'll poke him and say at least some. I'll tell you one of the things, and Bruce had pointed this out. He said he thought it was super important that the county, especially Parks and Rec, is our first being our first foray into broadening our reach across the county. Understand some of the dense, relatively, the population of some of these neighborhoods is considerable.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, even just on the map, to show how many lots or how many houses are in the neighborhoods. just so they get a better idea.
Mhm.
Do you know, is
Well-
Lane Smith the same? Is it, it's a water association, but probably not an HOA?
I don't know anything about Lane Spit,
I know
sorry.
one person was in there, so I'll ask. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Okay, we're doing well, folks. We'll just get through this and then we can go home, and I'll keep working on a tour with the expectation we can do one.
Okay.
I
that's
have a
good
cool
idea.
mapping software. It's the search and rescue software I think I told you about, Terry.
Yeah,
It's great for planning the tour and showing these things. So at a minimum, we can give them a cool map with at least all these organizations somehow represented on a map.
you know, I think this is really excellent. You know, it's, and the more we look at it, the more we think about somebody else or some other group.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the, you know, we have, obviously, we have the phone book and everything, but it's more, I think to me, it was more about a kind of, I don't know if grouping is the right word, but getting some of the commonalities and cross section so that we see, as long as I'm talking to you, oh, you're also a member of X. Isn't that fabulous? Thank you. Could you also talk to them? So it's also economy of scale, if you will.
Yeah.
Now
Rhode
the,
Island Library.
oh, absolutely, it's here. It's here.
Okay,
And
okay.
I have, and they're very excited about it. I have talked with, did I go by that? How am I missing some of these?
Soil.
Yeah, So how am I going through step by step and missing them anyway? I jumped ahead, obviously. Yeah,
Well,
so
you're in alphabetical order, so foil
That's right.
would be
that's right. It was
back.
before ILAIR. So, well, because I tell you what, I wanted library and foil together in the end. So,
Oh, good idea.
because they, to me, they're a model of excellence for community involvement. I'm sure the county doesn't realize how amazing they are and how little drain they put on the county library system for the amazing services they represent, as well as being an emergency shelter.
I'll make a quick comment.
Mhm.
Is I've been doing a lot with Birch Bay, like I've mentioned, and one of the more recent projects is they need a new library. Well, I shouldn't say that way. They need a library. They've
Yeah.
been paying over $500,000 a year in library taxes, but they were getting just a bookmobile on Wednesday.
Well,
Once somebody went through the numbers, they got a little bit assertive, and so they started a campaign, and the library, Whatcom County Library Foundation and System bought a homestead home right on the waterfront.
Uh-huh.
And they got an amazing price for it. And the house was original homestead of the Boat family. And it's a craftsman style house. Anyway, I brought the people, once it was all purchased, and I brought they created a library group. And I brought some of the representatives over to meet with Joan Kuiper and the librarian that we had at the time at our library here on the island. And they did a lot of brainstorming together. And then fast forward, there was some public comment. The library system hired a consultant, and there were public comments in Birch Bay about what the area needed, the community wanted for a library. And it's really important. You can have senior services, you can have student services.
Oh, good golly. It's such a critical.
Amazing. So what the consultant did, which surprised me, but that's me. They came up with a design, and it was 7,000 square feet. It would be tearing down the craftsman style homestead house and all the pole buildings, which those are going to go down anyway. And the community thought, where did that all come from? So the community tried twice in the last year to develop a library tax district, and it failed each time. Each time. And so then it went back to the drawing board, and guess what? Lummi Island Library became a concept as a model.
Yay!
As an example. So now the homestead house is staying, and they're going to create a library out of that. They still have to do a lot of fundraising stuff. And they're doing something really interesting. They're going to have a drive-through library window where you can drop
Oh.
books off, or yeah, isn't that cool? Like a
I like it. Uh-huh.
like fast food. Anyway, they're going to do this. I just saw the design for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I like it, but I'm used to this library and I like our library. So,
Yeah, of course.
and it fits Birch Bay. It fits Birch Bay, but the example was Lummi Island Library.
Yeah, no, our library is just outstanding. It's really community based. And like, you know, like Foyle kind of owns the building and
Right.
maintains the building. So we developed a foundation to do that. And I think the story of our library is very cool and a really good example of community coming together.
Yep. Well, that's
And
what I
that's
said.
exactly when people at this event that I went to they had a kite festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't been out there for a bit. This Saturday, I'm there for the sand sculpture competition. I'm one of the judges, but hadn't been to the Birch Bay physically for a bit to spend time with them. And I was there and several people came up to me and said, "You've got to see the new design. It's just like the Island Library."
Oh,
Because the voters said no to the 7,000 square foot facility.
yeah.
And they love that house. And it's right, and there's this big lawn, and there's a beach. You know, you can sit on the porch and read a book. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing.
Mhm.
But it's the Lummi Island Library that was the topic and the example.
Yeah.
Well
Good.
done.
Good, as it should be. Okay, so just a few more here. I had I was going to reach out to the Root and Rise Nature School. And the Salish Center for Sustainable Fishing Methods. I've sent a message off to them, and apparently also Carol McKinney. Dave Perry talked to Carol McKinney about it. Salvation Army, I haven't done anything yet because like I say, I'm trying to get through my other list first. And going to follow up with Brad at the Islander, the Willows, and then the Marine Mammal Stranding Network. Talk to Victoria.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, I need to send her. And one of the things she asked about, we were at the Tome folding party, was talking to the county about getting the better signage, especially about the seal pups.
Mhm.
And so I said, oh, absolutely. You know, especially if we could do a tour stop, we could point out Seal Rock and say, you know, we'll be having a public comment from the Mammal Stranding Network about trying to protect the pups from tourists. Apparently this year it's been a lot of encroachment.
That's excellent.
There we go. Okay, you fine people.
This is exciting.
That's well, hopefully, you know, I think we said last week, it's kind of the sometime as long as we're can really get you in trouble. Like if you're working on your house project and somehow it just keeps creeping in scope. But hopefully this project, as long as we're, you know, as long as we are, you know, getting, hopefully getting a really good cross-sectional look like this, that other efforts, other initiatives, other organizations on the island might be able to leverage this for themselves to see, oh, wait, now, you know, maybe I see some aspects of this that my organization could benefit from or contribute with or meet these folks. And, you know, let some other folks, like you say, maybe energize what they're doing with a little broader understanding themselves of what's going on in the island.
And another word that's really key. I mean, so many government things that when we hear a new word, a fresh word, we're to zone in on it. The resiliency is one key thing, but inclusive.
Yeah.
Inclusive. And so what you're creating is an inclusive opportunity. You're not, we've had groups and we've had some or cliques, um, which is unfortunate because it ends up hurting people's feelings if they don't fit in.
Yes, don't
it's-
feel welcome. Mhm.
Yeah, and here they are. They probably were a wealth of something, and plus it's just bad manners. Personally, I just think it's just we should be more inclusive. And so that's a key word right now.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Equity.
yeah, and I can certainly see. I appreciate. It's kind of like I listened to that Life Act meeting the other night, and I was so pleased. The new member I thought brought to the table a very thick skin. She brings apparently a vast background in working with different government organizations. And when somebody made a comment that I thought was certainly could have been much more diplomatic, she responded, I think, very equitably and included, continued to be inclusive. And that's one of the things I see Islanders sometimes just forget,
Mhm.
that your viewpoint is very possibly not the only viewpoint. And I think this committee, we have tried really, really, really hard to hear the criticism, listen to the parts that are, ones we can deal with and recognize and continue to include people in the conversation, and hope that over time they will become perhaps a little less stringent.
I'll do this really quick. As we're chatting, I think about some things I've experienced, and I was selected by Lummi Nation to be the moderator for the public meetings here on the island about the ferry lease negotiations. And it got really intense, where even they just wanted to have a conversation. The Lummi people came over to explain where they were coming from, and the Islanders were angry. There was a lot of anger. Richard Jefferson, who was representing the Lummi people, and myself, the Lummi people selected me to moderate the meetings. We both got death threats from Islanders. And pardon me?
Just wow, I think.
I know, and we got them the day of the first big meeting. I don't know if you were at that, Mary, at the
Yes.
school. And I had been hearing stuff, but I've been in the entertainment industry and I've worked in other countries, so not everybody likes everybody. I'm a big girl, I figured that part out. But this was startling to me, that they would threaten our lives because we were going to have a conversation. And they did it publicly. I got emails, Richard got emails, and on Facebook, one individual bought a Glock with my name on it. My response back was, wow, nobody's ever done that for me. How sweet is that? But we still held the meeting, and here's what was amazing. I moderated the meeting. They brought over a few members of the tribal business, and they did a PowerPoint presentation that was brilliant. We had questions in advance. Islanders wanted to slam dunk them, and they wanted to sideswipe them. I didn't allow that. We're only going to deal with the questions you bring to me in advance, and I send it to them.
Very good.
So we're prepared. We have answers. So it's not a big battle. And
Out of control mob.
Yeah, and the place was packed. It was like 300 plus standing room only kind of a thing. And I'm in the front at the podium, and the tribal people are to the side, and we chatted for a minute beforehand and asked each other, are you okay? And I said, I'm okay. Are you okay? And I thought, I don't know, I had this moment where we're all gonna die someday, right? And if I die because I'm being shot because I'm in a meeting with Lummi Nation people wanting to explain about the ferry lease, well, so be it, because boy, would that be a media thing. My brain was like all over the place, and I insisted no county government officials be there. I don't know if you remember that, Mary. No attorneys, but we have island members who are attorneys, but no county. This was between two communities, two neighbors having a conversation. That's how I described it. So we did it. We had the thing, we had the PowerPoint presentation. There was dead silence. we had questions to be answered. We had them all done. And I think, and then I opened it up. This was really telling. I opened it up and gave the format and some housekeeping details of how the evening was going to go. And I said that it started at 6, I think. I said we'd like to be able to have our guests take the 8 o'clock ferry. And Richard Jefferson, I'm on a microphone. Richard Jefferson stood up and he did not need a microphone. And he said, he excused himself for interrupting. And he said, my parents taught me that you stay until the job is done. We are staying here tonight until the conversation is done. It doesn't matter which ferry. Do you remember that?
I remember that, yes. That
And then
was
he
very
blessed-
powerful.
It was, and he has that presence. And then he blessed us. He blessed the gathering, and we
Mhm.
had some food beforehand. And so then we started. I felt totally empowered with the Lummi people. We did the presentation, and then at the end there was time for we made time. A couple more questions from the audience. I think there were 2. It was 2, maybe 3, but I think there were only 2 more. I asked again, no more questions. And then there was a standing ovation, a spontaneous standing ovation. And even the people who had threatened our lives were standing there applauding us.
Mhm.
So the island has a history. And I think that's why I'm finding words like inclusive and community benefit and resiliency. We've been through some stuff, but we have new people, we have fresh approaches, and we're reaching out differently. It's time to get rid of that other stuff. Not get rid of it, learn from it.
Let go. Yeah, I think there's a definite. Let's
Yeah.
expect the best of people. Let's not
Yeah.
focus on the things that happened in the past. Let's go
Yeah,
forward.
There's new people who are open, approachable, and all about community. But early in, we need to bring in the Lummi people, so that it's not a last minute thing. But anyway, that's my closing rant.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Well
And
done.
we'll have this recorded. I'll continue working on the org reach out or outreach, and look forward. We'll talk to you and next Tuesday for sure, but I'll be in touch with both of you before then.
Okay,
All right,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
And Lane, do you want me to send the recording to you, or just
You can
send it to Alan?
Go ahead and send it to me because I'm pretty sure I know what he's done, and so I should be able to do that. Thank you, Mary.
Bye,
Yeah.
ladies.
Okay,
Thank you,
All
Terry.
right.
Good night.
good night, Terry.
Yeah, Mary. I think he probably just uploads it to media on the website and then links to it, and I can do that.
Okay, good. All right.